Well, have marketing trends affected just how the church packages itself and sends out its message? Our next guest thinks so. Steve Maish is one of the authors of The Ego Boom, Why the World Really Does Revolve Around You. And Steve, thank you for being with Listen Up.
Thank you.
The church, you write, actually blurred the lines of how people were looking for spiritual needs. What do you mean?
Well, they did it in large part out of necessity. The thing about belonging to a church or any faith-based community traditionally has meant that it comes with a certain number of responsibilities and expectations. And what we argue in the book is that we're living through a period where people are so profoundly self-centered and concerned about themselves and their own spiritual journey, that they're not terribly interested in hearing about doctrine. They're not terribly interested in hearing about what it takes to belong to a faith-based community. They want to hear about what the church can do for them.
You also write about truthiness
Yes.
that, picked up in the comedy news commentating world of Stephen Colbert, but truthiness, you think, has watered down what the church actually was meant to bring.
Yes. I mean, we argue in the book that we've all been looking for shortcuts to meaning and shortcuts to spirituality. And that's where you find an awful lot of people out there today saying, well, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. And I live according to my own spiritual code. And that is where the churches have really started to struggle, because historically the things that held faith-based communities together was doctrine, but doctrine is not a terribly easy sell with a generation of people that have been raised to believe that the most important thing is how they feel about themselves. One
of the core issues of Christianity is that we need salvation, that our human nature is broken, fallen, full of sin, and that the salvation of Jesus Christ is the human condition's answer. You believe that's not even part of the marketing package anymore.
Well, more and more what churches have had to say is they've had to drop the whole idea that you need to live up to the following moral standards in order to be a part of this community and in order to find salvation. More and more people are going off into things like we talked about The Secret, this multi-million selling book that says you can find salvation within yourself.
Eckhart Tolle's books, all the whole New Age trend that boomed last year.
That's really what it's all about, that ultimately what you need to do is find peace within yourself and then you are saved. And that's fine, but that is a fundamental shift in the way that faith-based communities have spoken to their parishioners.
And plus it totally erodes the authority of what the church was created to do in the first place, and that was to share the truth of God. What's the consequence of allowing that kind of shift to run through the church culture?
Well, I think the consequence that we're seeing in church culture is similar to the consequence we're seeing in political culture, which is that more and more there's not very much holding together these communities, that in the desperate effort to hold people in the pews, they are dropping away many of the things that make that community a community. And we're seeing the same thing in a lot of our political institutions.
And the whole pursuit of God is in fact about God, not first about ourselves.
Yes, I mean, I'm not an expert on any individual church's mandate, but certainly that is what it's about. You've got to stick to a message at some point, because if you water it down to the point that it's completely meaningless, then what is there holding it all together?
All right. When we come back, more views on why church attendance is in decline and the search for spirituality adrift.